Let's do it.
Welcome to Live America podcast. This is Hatem alongside me, a returning guest, one of my favorite. He is an author. I describe him different than he described himself. He's a curious guy, he says, but he's a researcher. He's an author of so many. One of them is my one of my old definitely all time favorite, which is Marketing Chief: How Each President Sold the American Idea. But among any other many other books, but he's here. He's returning, and he's gonna celebrate part two of us of 250 years of America. Jason Voiovich, it's great to see you.
Sam, good to see you again. Yeah, I'm awesome. This is what a great topic. I think I've been a little disappointed in the 250 year celebrations. Just around, I participated in some myself, but I think there's a lot of people out there right now who are kind of down on America and, things are frustrating and they're really negative about it. But I have to tell you, just as a historian, as someone who has studied America over its entire life cycle, this is a great time to be alive. It's still an amazing, innovative idea that continues to attract people from all over the world. So I'm excited about it, and I want to share a little bit of that with you. So your questions are awesome. I can't wait to get started.
All right. Yeah, and I agree with you. It's interesting. It's almost that it was one day, like of 250 years of America. And even like Fourth of July, I expected like fireworks gonna be like much more amazing or longer. I mean, granted, the weather
Right.
here in New York was pretty bad that day and they had to move it. Uh, but I don't know. Like I travel, I was, for the World Cup in different states, and it's interesting, and each state is so different in that there's some where you see like posters and flyers and ads everywhere about 200, and you're like, oh, I totally forgot that it's over. Um, so yeah, I agree with you. I think part of, you know, the people that want to fight the idea and, there's a lot of things that we're doing wrong. That's all great, but you are in a place where you can say that. And you are in a place where you can change that. So it's a great idea to be celebrated. So that's why I wanted to do a part one. It was amazing with Michelle Paradis and Mike Pesca, and part two with you. I can't wait. But that's the idea of what I'm trying to do here is like to, celebrate. A lot of countries don't last 250 years the way we did, and also celebrate the fact that it's the American idea. You can be here for a few days and you become an American. Everybody's an immigrant pretty much at some point. Obviously, there's some people that have problems. We have so many problems that we want to, change, but we also achieved a lot. So, what I want to do today is want to go top three, only top three, even though we have a lot of tops, so we can go top 10, top 100. But I want to go with top threes with you. You ready for this?
I'm ready. Let's hit it.
Okay, so let's go with the first thing. For you, let's talk about presidents first. Who is your top three presidents, since you researched that a lot, and why?
That's a really good question. And I challenged myself when I saw that not to pick George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, people like that. Those are obviously, and they should be in everybody's top three for a lot of really great reasons we get into. So I'm going to go for those ones that maybe people wouldn't put at that top three. I'm going to pick Truman, Coolidge, and Teddy Roosevelt, and I'll tell you why. Uh, Harry Truman was a prototypical American, came from essentially nothing. He was a failed haberdasher, like basically men's clothing person. He was part of the political machine in Missouri, rose above it, was faced with, at the end of World War II, FDR basically didn't involve him in anything. If you read David McCullough's biography, for instance, you really know how ignorant Harry Truman was about the war effort, had no idea we had a atomic bomb, no idea about any of that stuff. Handed the keys when Roosevelt died and said, "You have to be the one that bring this war to a conclusion." He had to make all those decisions with very little information. And the way he did them, we can debate like, hey, should he have used the atomic bomb? Should he have done this? Should he have done that? But with the retrospectoscope, we can see how just kind of honest, forthright, and reasonable, just an honest Midwest kind of guy making the best decisions he could with the information that he had and have largely stood the test of time. He was a great human being as well, which is just prototypically American. You could come from nothing, rise to the top, make decent decisions, and then go out, retire, go back to driving your car with your wife and enjoying road trips. He is a great story. I recommend anyone take a look at that. All right. Calvin Coolidge is not one people would expect me to say. Most people don't even know who Calvin Coolidge was, uh, what time he was the president. He was the president during the 1920s, the Roaring Twenties. I got to know Calvin Coolidge much more when I wrote my history of the 1920s. And what was really interesting about him was that he took much more of a hands off approach. Most presidents are really interventionists. They want to do things, they want to act. But during the 1920s, what Calvin Coolidge really realized is that it was better for the government to do less, for it to be less involved, to try to intervene less. And you can really contrast that with the 1930s. The conventional wisdom says, hey, the 1920s was the cause of the 1930s and that it needed to be controlled. Otherwise, the Great Depression wouldn't have happened. Most economic historians would tell you that's not true, and that many of the interventions we made during the 1930s were actually really counterproductive and made the Great Depression quite a bit worse. So I like Coolidge's approach because it's a really great reminder that, hey, there's only so much any president can do, and that sometimes it is basically not screwing things up is better than trying and screwing things up. Americans as a people are pretty good at figuring things out on their own. They don't need as much help as the government tends to think they do. And then finally, Teddy Roosevelt, one of my favorite human beings. What I love about him, there is a speech he gave called In the Arena, and many of your listeners will remember it. And it really talks about how what it means to be an American is to get in the arena, to get bloodied up, to try things, to fail, to not be a spectator, not be a commentator. You want to get in there, you want to build something. That is what Americans are. That is who we are as a people. We are builders, we're innovators, we're creative people. Yeah, we talk about a lot of stuff, but really at our heart, who we value as people aren't the commentators. No one built a statue to a critic. We build statues to Henry Ford, to Edison, to uh, we'll in the future we'll build statues to people like Steve Jobs because they did stuff. They made things happen. That is what America really is. You come here and you build something. That's why my mom's family came here from Cuba. That's why my dad's family came here from, the Eastern Bloc, from Croatia, because they wanted to come here and build stuff. And that's really my background, and probably a lot of yours and a lot of your
Yeah.
listeners is their parents, grandparents, great grandparents came here because if you grew up in France, you were French. And you kind of how you were born is pretty much how you were going to live your life and how they were going to put you in the ground. When you come to America, though, you can make something of yourself. Yeah, it's up to you. And that's what's so appealing. It's what's still so appealing. And I think those three presidents for me really nail it for me on where they came from, what they achieved, and how they saw the world.
Okay. Interesting. And which president you think from all presidents that had the greatest long-term impact on America's future?
Again, trying to avoid Washington and Lincoln,
Yeah.
which are great examples. Uh, I still think it's FDR. And
Okay.
the reason I say FDR is the Roosevelt administration, not only was it so long, it was 4 terms, not fully 4 terms, so kind of 3 terms and a couple of months before he passed away. But it was long enough. It was the longest presidency. which he had that amount of time to really shape how America saw itself. And I am not a big FDR backer. I don't think he was a great president. And I'll tell you why. He was a great communicator, and being a communicator, I certainly understand that and respect his communication ability. Where I think he went wrong is in shifting how Americans' relationship with government turned out. And there were really good reasons for that. And you just have to understand the time that he was in, that the counter argument could be he saved the American idea from kind of going down the communist socialist route in the 1930s because it was definitely heading that direction. He was able to kind of keep it pulled back from that. But I think the 1930s, the Great Depression, and FDR's leadership specifically really changed how people see what they can expect from the government and then what they expect from themselves. It is very different to see people from that generation who grew up and then immigrants who are more recent. For instance, my mom's family, my dad's family, never expected any of that. They never expected all of the social programs. They never expected any of that. They just came in here and they said, it's all on us. And that's just how it's going to have to work. And that's how they wanted it. And
Mm.
I think that's the appealing idea of America is you come in not for the safety, not for the security, but for the chaos, for the opportunity, for the vibrancy of it. And I think the more we get away from that, the weaker we are as a country.
Uh, Again, I want to remind everybody that we are doing the 250-year celebration. I know there's a lot of things and problems and that we can talk about, and we will in other episodes. But this episode specifically about celebrating this. That's why we even talking about the positive things the president did, not just the bad things. But I tell you my opinion, which president that had the greatest long-term impact on Americans' future, or in my opinion, or at least I hope they will have I'll pick two, Trump and Biden. I hope they have a great impact in the future because what happened during this era, I mean, presidents were always been about like the other guy is a bad guy, I'm a good guy.
Yeah, that's always
But
that
yeah,
was that's always how it's been.
yeah, but the amount of division and fear and the characteristic of you don't feel the president anymore, you know. Now we have a choice. We saw Trump, he did some good things, he did some bad things. You saw Biden, he did some good things, he did some bad things. But they both, in my opinion, should not have been presidents, you know. Uh, but some of their ideas were very good, and they did a good job. But I'm talking about the characteristic of a president, the way, we do. So I hope that they have an impact that our future choices should represent the idea of what America is and should represent the idea of or the dream of little kids want to be president that they don't have to act like this or do like this or do certain things and the way we talk to president to other nations and the way we held ourselves up again Trump did some great things, Biden did some great things, I'm not taking that away from them, but like the achievement Trump closing the border in virtually no time, that's amazing, but the way it's not an American president, it's not a leader of the world. So I hope that these two will give us a long-term impact that we learn from our mistakes, and we will learn that from the next circle of election. If we're gonna go down that road, or if we're gonna, I still remember that Obama. Oh my God, why am I who was the Republican nominee against Obama the first time?
Romney?
Not Romney, the second time, sorry.
Oh, McCain.
McCain. When he was on one of his campaigns, he's like, he's a bad guy. He's like, no, no, no. He's a good American family. I just disagree with him. Like that kind of, you know,
That was awesome.
yeah.
That was a great line. You can like or not like John McCain for whatever your own reasons are, but when he grabbed the microphone from that, I think it was a lady who said, "Yeah, he's these bad things," and he's like, "Nope, not going down there.
And
I
yeah, and
just disagree with him."
yeah, and also like Romney when he said like to Obama like, oh, congratulations. It's just the fact that now before any debate, it's like There's a bet going on if they're gonna shake hands or not. How is that in America? It's insane. Are they gonna shake hands? Are they gonna? I mean, come on. I mean, so I hope that these two have a good impact in a good way and in a bad way. Like again, I don't want to take away from a lot of good things that Biden did or Trump did, but there's a lot of bad stuff, and the character is not American enough for me. Especially like for Biden, I think loving the power over the country and want to last, even though it's kind of like dictatorship, kind of like mindset a little bit. It's like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
better than anybody, so I'm just gonna stay, even if I don't know what's going on around me. I'm saving the country. That mindset is not an American mindset. It was always a president's capable to lead the country. If somebody else is better than me, I'm gonna lead it to you.
Yeah, that's something that Andrew Heaton, who I know has been on the show as well, did a great episode, and I'll plug it here on Washington for the 250th anniversary.
Interesting. I
And
was just with Andrew Heaton in Vegas 2 days ago doing the Freedom Fest with Rob Schneider and all that. So, cool.
sweet. Yeah, Andrew's great. I like him a lot. He had a great episode, and I recommend everyone check out the Political Orphanage. It was basically how it was comparing George Washington to Oliver Cromwell in the UK, and how Cromwell basically got power away from the king, and then basically became a king himself. He couldn't walk away from power, and how Washington understood that reference and it wasn't that far away. And that's really why Washington wanted to step away from that. He said, I will not be America's Cromwell.
Yeah.
And I tend to agree with you. There's good and bad on every president. I think it is, uh, some have more good and more bad. I'll certainly admit that, but there's never been a complete 100% zero person. What I would say is, more of them could remember Washington's example, where Washington specifically walked away at the height of his power when the rest of the country thought, oh, things are going to go to hell if you leave. We're going to get that terrible Jefferson guy or that terrible Adams guy, or things are going to totally fall apart. And George Washington had the faith in the American idea to say, no, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Like, we could go through some rough patches here and there, but you know what? It's okay. We'll come through it. And we have to learn how to do this. We have to learn from our mistakes. Actually, that's some of the best times in America have been the times where we have learned from effing things up and having really bad examples. Like, oh, we don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Got
So
it.
I hope,
And
but I
we
hope we
always
don't.
switch back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always do.
Well, I hope we do this time because I think it's things getting out of hand from the end of Biden, from the second Biden term to, you know, this whole thing. It's becoming, and there's more people coming up that promote hate and promote racism and promote uh, the idea of America first is a great concept, but you should be it should be there all the time without saying. But how people understand it is different, and that's what kind of like it goes to like you can see people like talking about uh, racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, all these things, and just like promote like nothing happened. And also, just to go a little bit funny, Washington and all these presidents are great, but I wonder if they have Twitter in their hands or Instagram or my brother's like, look at this fucking Washington. What he just tweeted this is like, what a dick. So it's also the idea of, and I think this is one of the things about the Gaza war, especially this, is like we would not have known the horrors of the war and the kids dying and all that if it wasn't for social media, it wasn't for phones, it wasn't for these inventions, because you will just hear it and it's not the same thing, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
could you imagine Richard Nixon with Twitter?
yeah, yeah,
Like, I mean, come on, that'd be fucking hysterical. Like, I'd want that. I mean, do you remember there's just the funny stuff? Like Lyndon Johnson's recorded telephone conversations are so fucking hysterical. Like him ordering pants. You remember that story? He's like ordering new pants. He's on the phone with his tailor, and he's like, "Yeah, get me more of those pants. Like, I need a little bit more room in the bunghole. Like I just need more room in my asshole. It's just these are too big. I need four more pairs of pants like that." it's a recorded conversation. Can you imagine that? Just like that's on Twitch or that's
It,
on TikTok. Like he's
yeah.
just recording. He's he's like ordering new pants.
Yeah, no,
And it was
it's
so weird. Yeah.
and that's why I think it has to that you have to have a mindset of understanding the time, because there would be certain time, specific time that you would do something, even in our generation, that 20 years ago you cannot do and now you can, or vice versa. So you have to put it in that concept and just judge the character and judge the understanding. But yeah, I think these two presidents, I hope they have the greatest and long-term impact of us coming back to somebody that you want to look forward to become. Every kid want to be president, it's I think it's important, and they lead with class, more than a mob, boss or somebody who's not just in the front. All right, last question about the president. Which president do you think was most underrated?
That's a tough one. I think a lot of presidents are overrated. I think they are all special. They're all really remarkable people in their own way. I think each of the people who's held that office is got to that point. I mean, if you think about the amount of skill and luck and timing that had to do with getting to be the president is just amazing.
Yeah,
But the one person who stands out almost without question is Ulysses Grant. And when you think about just the time he was in and whose shoes he had to fill, yes, you could say Andrew Johnson was kind of in between there after Lincoln was assassinated, but most people didn't really take Andrew Johnson that seriously, and it really left things a mess. The United States after the Civil War was a complete shit show. Most people don't really understand how bad it was, like how devastated the South was, how difficult it was for newly freed people, how people in the North many times just didn't give a shit.
yeah,
What was like they were done, like they were just exhausted from the whole thing. And Ulysses Grant had to keep it together during 8 years and largely did largely found a way to kind of keep the wheels on. That Lincoln prosecuted the war and got to the end, but Lincoln was not a popular guy.
yeah,
Even in the North during the Civil War, there are a lot of people in the North who said, let those guys go. Like, they don't want to be a part of it. Let them go. They can have their plantations, they can have their deal. It's probably a better deal that we're not part of them anyway. When you take a look at the economic split, one of the best charts I have in Marketer in Chief is basically a view before the war on the economics of the United States before the Civil War broke out and economic development. And it's night and day. It's kind of like looking at South Korea and North Korea today, where you look at a map at night and North Korea is just dark and South Korea is just lit up like a Christmas tree. And it was the North and South was just like that. And there are a lot of people in the North who said, you know what? Why they're holding us back? Like,
yeah,
why would like let them go? We just want basically from California, have it be more north, like take Texas through Virginia, Florida. See you guys. Good luck on your own. And, it was Lincoln who had the wisdom to say, we are better together than we are apart. And Grant, who was the one who actually held it together afterwards. Had he not been there, had it been Johnson, had it been almost anyone else, there are very few people who had the charisma, who had the respect of people who had the respect of both people in the North and people in the South enough to hold it all together. And it was probably the most consequential kind of political move in our country's history. It wasn't really the Emancipation Proclamation because no one in the South gave a shit
yeah,
about that. It was Grant in the military who ensured it. And, when you talk with people today, they realize it was really him who implemented what Lincoln was talking about. So, just as my background for those listeners who don't know, I'm in product development. I engineering, I do things for a living, build things for a living. I know there's a difference between the idea of something, the rhetoric, and the actual implementation and getting it done. Grant was a doer.
Yeah,
And we don't, because he was not good at public speaking.
yeah.
He was super quiet. He got shit done.
I
And
to that point, I think it's one of my favorite lines. I think it was in a social network movie, which is a story about Facebook. And to you, there's even in shows and comedy, in movies and production and anything in sports, you always hear the same idea. Um, but the line from the social network was, he said, if you were the creators of Facebook, you would have created Facebook. You know, like
yep,
everybody have the idea. Who's gonna actually do it? You know, so
yeah,
so that's how you do it. So, and I think that's a very also American things. Not only in the way, I mean, China does that well. A lot of countries does, but I think the way that we try to do it with not underpaying people, not cutting corners and all that. I think that's a good thing. All right, let's move on to sports. Top three sporting events,
sports.
and I'm gonna tell you my top three, and we can comment on it, or you can add yours. You know, my top three.
Let's do it. You go first. Yeah, you go
Okay,
first. Top
so
three.
my top three sporting event that shaped or identified or I felt America in it. I think my top three are the following: Miracle on Ice. You know, um,
Yeah,
I think
I
that
agree.
was
I'm a
that.
Minnesotan. I'm a Minnesotan. Of course, I agree
Yeah,
with the Miracle on Ice. Yeah,
yeah. For
100%.
for those who didn't know, U.S. versus Soviet Union at the time, and all the hockey team for the U.S. were just college kids. There's no pros, and there was no way they compete the professionals of Russia, Soviet Union at the time, and it was just a great a great game, and it was by any mean like a miracle. And the coach says one of the best lines ever in coaching: if you play for the badge in the front, people remember the name in the back. So I think
Herb
that
Brooks.
really
Yeah.
shaped that the mentality of anything is possible if you put your head to it and you work hard to it. So that's one. I'll say all three, and then you can comment on them. My
Yeah. Yeah.
second
Yeah.
one, I think Mike Piazza's home run after 9/11. I think that was,
Mhm.
being in New York at that time, and it was just I never seen a sporting event that unite a nation in terms of like there's no teams, there's no everybody was rooting for anybody to do a home run at that time. It was incredible. People were crying. It meant
Yeah.
some kind of victory at that hard moment. And my third one is, and I think that's a very, and that's the idea that I wanted to share. To me, what America is was the dream team. You know, wasn't, the
Oh, I
dream
love
team
that.
in the
Yeah.
Olympic, it wasn't about arrogance. It wasn't about we much better than you. It was literally the dream team. I still remember while they were playing, and you can watch the highlights, the other team is watching them play, not playing against them. And they didn't come up with arrogance. They didn't come up with "I'm better than you" attitude. They respected the opponent. There's so many times that they could have killed them and didn't. They work with class. They presented what America is. We just so good, but we're gonna win with class still. So I think these three to me are the top sporting event teams moments in the American history. If I have to pick three, what's your thoughts?
I One of mine was Miracle on Ice. That's because I'm a Minnesota kid, born and raised, Herb Brooks. You grow up, growing up when you were skating out on the pond, that's kind of a Minnesota thing to do. That's even the Minnesota Wild, the pro hockey team. One of their core values is pond, because all kids in Minnesota grew up, strap on your skates, go out to the pond, grab a couple of sticks, puck, put a couple of snow mounds out for the goal, and impromptu hockey game anytime. So that it lumpy ice, you're going to take a few falls, but everybody watched that and grew up with stories about that. So totally agree with you on that. I would say I liked yours. I love the Dream Team. I love that home run. That was a great home run. I would say going back a little bit more historical, uh, Jesse Owens in the 36 Olympics, going over to Hitler's Germany and basically showing the master race this is what America is all about. We are going to come in with we're going to let, and it was still a really racially charged time in the 1930s. There's no question about that. It's not like we were living in some racial utopia in the 1930s. But I think what America saw, what it represented was Hitler's Germany represented what that kind of racial idea taken to its extreme would look like. And his vision was that if you purified that, you would be better. And that's where excellence would come from. And America says, no, that's not where excellence come from. Excellence doesn't come from the color of your skin. It comes from the content of your character. It comes from what you're going to do and what you're going to show. Anybody can be an American. You can be Asian, you can be black, you can be white, you can be Latin, you can be anything. But America is an idea. And that idea breeds excellence. And Jesse Owens just fucking dominated uh, those events and really showed the world this is what the American idea really is. And this is why you should come here. And it was just another example of that. So I love that one. Uh, I also love if I had to pick a baseball example, it was Hank Aaron beating Babe Ruth in 74,
Mm.
breaking the home run record and like just some cool, just other cool events like that. But yeah, I I think there's something, Hatem, about the Olympics, like Michael Phelps winning the
Yeah.
gold medals in '08. I mean, there's like, yeah, the Super Bowl and the World Series and kind of our own sports are great. But I think what's really cool is being able to see, on the world stage when other people can see, they get an idea of what America really is about through our athletes and through what we can produce.
Yeah.
That, you go and like, oh, you've got like, I remember a picture of what was it, the gymnastics team? I can't remember. Was it 12 or 16? I can't remember exactly what year it was. Forgive me on this, but it was like the American team competing with the Chinese team. As like you looked at the Chinese team and who was on the Chinese team? Chinese women. Look at the American team. There's, white one, there's a black woman, there's, Asian, there's like this kind of representative group of, American athletes on there that come from all walks of life, that come from, they're all different and they're going to go in there and they're going to win
Yeah.
because that is our strength, is the idea is our strength, not our ethnicity, not where we grew up, not the people we know. It's America is that real special kind of place where you can rise above that,
Yeah.
if you want to, if you choose to. That's up to you. And that's why I'm still such a big America booster. That might be because, I grew up with stories about what life was like in Havana when my mom was growing up. And you just have a different perspective as the child of an immigrant rather than,
I
someone
agree. Yeah.
who's kind of been here a long time.
I think as immigrants, there's two things that you deal with. One is the or maybe three, I would say for me. One is the appreciation of, the ideas and all that, coming from different parts of the world where things are different, and you recognize as bad as things could be here, there's the amount of good that also can do. And the second thing is there's always this fight against, oh, we don't want to have it. We have enough immigrants. We don't want any more. Everybody here was an immigrant or is an immigrant at some point, but it seems like if you're three generations out, you don't want any more. The next one you don't want. Uh, so that's the other thing is the acceptance. I think as immigrants, people are gonna always question, oh, you're not really while you probably more American than anybody else at that point because you've seen the world and you've seen here and you chose here. versus
Exactly.
he didn't choose here, you know. And I think the third thing, which is the idea that you know, just to go back just a minute, you know, when people like don't want immigrants here and they try to like be like, okay, we want collective, we want control. I'm with all that, you know, but you did if it coming from a point of to limit immigration in general, um, because of racism or because of some maybe Hitlerish ideas of like we want to purify or we want to white, we want to, you know, that's a problem. And the third thing for immigrants that I think that we deal with is like we've seen, especially if you grew up in the dictatorship, you've seen signs of dictatorship, and when you recognize them really quickly. And when you
Yeah.
start seeing them here, you have that fear. It's like, uh-oh, why is his kids in here? You know, why is his kids involved in this? Why is he said the election is need to be, you know, all these things, you know. So I think that this is the three things about immigrants. There's like one, they really chose here, so they very American if they believe in idea. Obviously, there's you know, some that don't, but and two is the acceptance part, and three is the recognition of stuff about sports, you know, and about everything else. I mean, we can go for hours. We can talk about characters. We can talk about records breaking. Not only like even the World Cup right now. The most, you know, people say like, oh, America don't really care about the World Cup. It's the most successful World Cup ever, but the more attended World Cup ever since, you know, the last World Cup that was most attended was the one here in 1994.
One here.
You know, so the entertainment business, that's what we do, you know. So that's why I want to go with only three with things while each sub, because my idea is to go through so many different topics that you can appreciate more of the 250 years. So let's go to economic milestones. What is your top economic events you think that shaped the modern life?
I think if I take them in historical order, I would say number one, the Transcontinental Railroad. I think what people don't understand is that it took 3 months to get to California. If you were in New York, literally you could get to St. Louis pretty quickly, and then you might or might not make it to California. That people actually took the boat around the tip of South America was faster than actually going overland. It was just crazy. The amount of economic benefit that had to link the United States geographically is something people just today do not understand. And maybe some people are old enough to understand what the internet meant to be able to kind of interconnect things and speed that up. That was a huge deal. So Transcontinental Railroad, no question. The second one, which is kind of a hidden one most people don't understand, is the 16th Amendment, the income tax amendment. Uh, and there's a chart in Marketer in Chief that shows how the government gets its revenue and how it got its revenue over time. And basically the percent of GDP that it was. And in the pre, amendment era, pre-income tax era, it was like 2 to 3% of GDP. The government actually just didn't have that much money to work with. Like they had to actually put a temporary income tax in to fund some of the Civil War. There just wasn't enough money. The government wasn't that big of a part of your life. In, kind of the teens, you started to get the income tax, and it was on just the highest proportion of earners in the beginning. But from kind of 2% of GDP to like 16 to 20% of GDP, the amount of money the government had to work with at its disposal went up by an order of magnitude. And when you think about that and what people expect of the government, how big of a role the government has in the economy, how important the president is. President, outside of Lincoln, it was kind of a political thing, but from an economic life perspective, the government wasn't that big of a deal. The income tax amendment absolutely changed that. And we've been dealing with the ramifications for that ever since. And then the third, almost unquestionably, was the end of World War II. And what I mean there is the rest of the world was devastated. The United States was largely, that's not, says nothing about the people who gave their lives during World War II, but the American mainland, outside of Pearl Harbor, the American mainland was largely untouched. That is not, no other country could really say that. Europe was a mess. Soviet Union was a mess. China was a mess. Japan was a mess. Uh, all the other areas of the world who had any economic power before World War II were gone. The United States was the only player left standing and cleaned up afterwards. People think about the baby boom in that area demographically, but that's where we got our economic prosperity, where it just, the curve bent for us. So those three, probably the biggest economic events from my perspective that put America on the economic path that it is today.
If you would erase one economic mistake from the history, what would that be? And also the other thing I don't understand, like the tariff thing, like the debate about every economic policy, it just like so like, oh my God, it's a disaster. Oh my God, it's a solution. It's so like left and right, like there's no middle ground. Like it's nothing. So, um, what would you do if there's one mistake that you can erase?
I'd repeal the income tax.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, we have a very progressive income tax. It is, but it has not necessarily had the impact I think people think that it does. It's interesting to hear people talk about today, like, hey, for all these social programs, who pays for those? We got to tax rich people more.
Mm,
Wonderful. We're already the top, the top 10% already pay 80% of all of those taxes. Most people just don't understand the basic economics of this. And it might seem like, well, by removing that, like, boy, I'm making it more regressive. I'm suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is a clearer link between what you're paying and what you're getting. And right now, and this is, I use the healthcare example. I pay because I'm independent.
mm,
I pay health insurance on the open market, and I don't have any subsidies, nothing like that. I live in Florida, so I need to pay. I need to pay for that. Most people don't understand what healthcare costs on a monthly basis. For just my wife and I, it is $2,400 a month plus, you know, that's a health savings account. That's a high deductible health plan. So we have to also contribute on top of that to an HSA account. So it's probably more like 3,000, 3,200 a month. And we're healthy.
mm,
We use very little, and most people would be really surprised to learn how much health insurance really costs. And you know why? Because we intervened in the 1940s with wage controls and decided that companies responded by putting health insurance into their employment packages. That's where we got that. So most people pay a fraction of the cost and their employer picks up the rest. So most people don't really understand what health insurance costs. When you don't understand what it costs, you don't understand how to value it. You don't understand how to buy effectively. You don't understand the like what's worth it and what's not. And you see the prices just continue to escalate. I am a big believer in making sure that you really understand in an economy. I'm a big believer in more information. The more you understand about what things cost and what value you're getting, the better decisions you can make. That's an American kind of way to do it. Don't hide things from people. Trust people to make the choices that are best for them. And right now we're in a situation with healthcare specifically where we're doing the exact opposite of that. And when you take that up a level to the income tax amendment, where we have basically put a lot of that on the government, where those costs are hidden from people. If the cost is hidden, I think it's free.
mm.
And if I think it's free, I don't really value it in the way that I should. I'm comfortable with a lot of money getting wasted in that. And it might seem kind of I'm not a heartless, completely free market kind of person, but we have disconnected the cost from the value, and that's been a huge mistake. And the reason I bring up healthcare is that I think it's something that more people can understand. I share my own experience, so that people can get a sense for if you're paying like, oh, I pay $50 a month from your employer, you're not you're not paying for shit.
Yeah.
Like your employer's paying for that. And if you had to go on the open market, it's ridiculous. So I don't like situations where we're trying to kind of play a shell game where we're hiding that.
Yeah.
I think the that's maybe the biggest economic mistake, and I consider it un-American. And the reason I say that is America is about opportunity, it's about choice, and in order to do that, you need good information, and we're hiding that information from people.
Yeah, definitely one of our mistakes, especially like the healthcare system need to change the whole thing. It's ridiculous that probably we have the worst one. We have the best equipment, doctors, all that, but then the cost of it. All right, we almost running out of town, and and I have so much, so maybe we can do part two at some point. But my last thing would be, and then I wanna talk about your book a little bit, and then can you do part two soon? We'll do.
Yeah, let's do a part two or a part 2.5 or like a
Yeah.
point three. Yeah,
There we
whatever
go.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
let's
right.
do it.
So, last question for this part is American heroes. Who are your top three American, not president, but hero that you think that changed
Not president.
history, represent the American dream, have the American legacy in it?
I am a I, I'm a big fan of obviously I'm a big fan of like MLK. I'm a big fan of Henry Ford, Jobs, people like that. Like, of course. Those are I'm trying to avoid those folks because they're so obvious. Uh I think go through I'm gonna hit three that I think really are Americans just through and through. The first one is Benjamin Franklin, who was essentially the first American, came from nothing, created basically the idea of what it was to be an American. He was basically the prototype. He was the beta version of American before there was an America. He was the one who convinced France to write the check that would fund Washington's army by being the prototypical American. He was the inventor, he was the polymath, he was well studied, he took no shit. He he was just that kind of guy. Uh, but a contemporary of his who knew him was John Adams' wife, Abigail. And the reason I put Abigail in that same category was when you read her letters, she was as smart as her husband, if not smarter, certainly more attuned to what how people were and how they understood. John Adams is kind of a dick, a very smart guy, but sort of a dick. His wife was always the person kind of helping him be more of a people person. She was the one who insisted in the Massachusetts state constitution that they had the clause that every citizen would be educated,
Yeah.
and that it wasn't just that people didn't have that idea. Lots of people talked about it. Abigail Adams was a doer, and she said, "No, you're going to fucking write it into that document because if it's not written in there, it can just kind of go away. It needs to be part of the Constitution for Massachusetts that everyone was educated." And look where they're at now. They've got Harvard, they have MIT. I mean, like, look at the world class educational institutions Massachusetts now has, largely because of her priority. So obviously, love her.
Yeah.
I just think she's a hero of mine. And then the third one, Elvis Presley, brother.
Yeah, of course.
The the guy who could come out of nowhere, merge musical genres, and create this. When people think about, like, you ask anybody from any country, like name an American, like Elvis Presley is just one of those people. Like, he's got big hair, he's shiny, he's kind of he plays the guitar, he's an entertainer, he's just bigger than life. He is kind of those people are the best of us.
Yeah.
That's my honorable mention in that whole thing, by the way, is not even a real person. It's Superman.
Yeah.
Like, when you think about who is Superman? And I just love this mythology. And it's one of those where I think like Quentin Tarantino kind of gets it a little wrong. Uh, Superman is supposed to be the best of you. He was the idea of like the Greek idea of a god. Like he was just a better than you sort of person at everything. But he was humble. He helped people. He kind of made it happen. It was just,
And most importantly, he
reading,
was an immigrant.
and he was an immigrant, and he was like he could represent all immigrants.
Yeah.
Just an amazing story. Uh he's again, and that the United States could make up a person and be a national hero is something that is a little rare
Yeah.
in the world, so pretty cool.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I'll add another one. Like I said, two things. One is like each list of this can have hundreds and hundreds of names. We'll just come in our mind at the
Yeah,
moment. And also, there's the good and bad, just like the top 10 good, we can say top 10 bad, which we will get to at some point, but right now we celebration. But I think Albert Einstein, you know, like
yeah, a
he
hundred
became
percent.
an American in no time, and he single-handedly saved a lot of, like with inventions and all that. We will do part two. Uh, Coming probably right after this one, but I want to quickly talk about your book, which my camera. Oh, here we go. Now it's getting it. Now it's called Now, The Innovators When to Guide, which is I think it's very important because we'll talk more about it next time too. But I want to like touch on it. Did it come out yet or not yet?
Yeah, it's out, and basically here's the 10-second pitch. We talk a lot about what we want to do and how we want to do it and who's important in that. But the conversation we just had is all about this arc of history over 250 years and what has changed over time. All things change, all things evolve. It's why America has been so successful for so long, is that it embraces change. It embraces new things as they come. That's the whole immigrant idea, is that new people come in and they add something to the idea of what America is and make it bigger and broader and better and more inclusive over time. My whole new book is about highlighting that as innovators, as creative people, we need to be skating to where the puck is, not where skating to where the puck is going to be, not where it is. Like
Yeah.
the Wayne Gretzky idea. We need to be thinking about where are we going, not where we are. We don't want to mistake the water for its flow. So, being a historian and being a creative person, it was a really natural book for me to write. And it's short. It's a lot shorter than my other books. Hatem knows this. It's maybe a fourth the size of Marketer in Chief, but it's really accessible. Anyone who wants to be a creative person, and I think as an American, that's your birthright, is to be a creative, innovative person. This book will help you get timing right.
It's always about timing in everything, in life and relationship and sports and anything, in work.
Anything.
It's about the right timing. And it's always, you can be ahead of your time and people don't understand the idea. You can be too late and invent something else that's, MySpace, Facebook, these two, MySpace was huge, was Facebook before, and then Facebook came with a couple of more, twitches and just disappeared and made million, you know, so stuff like that. So recognizing, we'll talk more about it because I think it's a very important book. And in part two, also, we will talk about more things like, wars and foreign policies, culture, entertainment. Most importantly, the two things that I really want to talk about is turning points for the United States for the 250 years and what we're looking forward to. And we will talk about some stuff that maybe we need to work on, which is also a lot of things. But for now, this part will end and we will start a new part soon with Jason Voiovich. His new book is out now, The Innovators When-To Guide. Jason, thank you so much. If people want to follow you or have questions for you or email you or anything like that, what should they do?
Oh, thank you. That's I really enjoyed it. You can find me in lots of places. Find me on LinkedIn if you're a professional, you want to communicate with me there. Find me on YouTube. I do have a YouTube channel. You could subscribe. I don't have a lot of subscribers right now, but that's okay. I talk about timing and that sort of thing for creative people. Or just go to jasonvoiovich.com, find my books on Amazon. However you want to do it. I'd love it if you read my books. I think you'd enjoy them.
100%. I personally enjoy them. Jason, thank you so much. Looking forward for part 2.5.